Oh, hi, it's your old buddy Zoo, and this is a 4-inch mini TV that cost $130. And it plays games worse than a $50 Anbernic, and yet somehow having this makes sense. Well, I guess it's sense adjacent. I'll explain. So here's the deal. This is the Gaming and Watching TV Mini Retro Smart Handheld Game Console, which is a name that sounds like it was assembled out of a bag of those Word refrigerator magnets. The spec sheet, mercifully, just calls it the Retro TV C1. So that's what we're calling it. It is a tiny TV. It runs Android 11. It is very deliberately shaped and designed like an 80s retro TV or even an Apple monitor. But does it make sense to buy this? Is it the best bang for your buck? Well, stick around because I'm going to answer those questions and probably raise some new ones. You know how we do, baby. All right, let's get this out of the box. And the very first thing you notice is that they leaned all the way into the bit. You've got the fake tube TV body, the chunky bezel, a couple of buttons on the front that may or may not actually do anything. It's pretty cool. I respect a product that commits to the bit. You power it on and you get this little, I'm a TV moment, and then it boots into Android 11. And that's where your brain does a little double take. Because this isn't a $12 Famiclone like we've looked at with 500 bootleg ROMs welded to a chip. This is a little actual Android computer. There's Play Store on here. Now what it comes with here is a little TV remote, not a controller. You can buy a slightly more expensive one that does come with a controller, but the base model comes with a clicker here, like it really, really wants to be a TV. But here's the move, because this sucker's got I/O on the back. It's got 2 USB-A ports, and you know what else will plug into a USB-A port? Pretty much any modern controller. And this thing has Bluetooth, but it's a little ugh. So I figure plug the USB-C side of a cord in here, plug the USB-A side into the back, Bob's your uncle, you're set. A wired controller is kind of the right move here because you're emulating, at least in your brain as well as on the actual chip, retro gaming from the 80s and the 90s when you were physically tethered to your TV. So being tethered to the mini TV isn't a bad thing. Now, real talk for 1 second so nobody yells at me, although that's almost impossible at this point. The chip in here is an Amlogic S905W2. That's a TV-box processor. It is not a gaming processor. It'll handle your NES, your Super Nintendo, your Genesis. It'll do PlayStation 1 all right. And then it starts wheezing, so set your expectations low. This is not where the value lives. We'll get back to that. But just keep in mind, if you want to play N64 on here, you're probably going to have a bad time. All right, let's get sentimental for a minute. When I was 10 or so, I got a 13-inch tube TV for my room. And within about a day, it stopped being the TV and it became my gaming hub. It was a dedicated Super Nintendo screen at that point. That was the whole identity of that television. It existed to play Super Nintendo. It was my room, my TV, my rules. And for a 10-year-old, that is an almost unbearable level of power. And that's kind of what this device is actually selling. It's not selling you a CRT. A 13-inch tube never had this little IPS panel in it. None of this is technically accurate, but accuracy was never really the point. This is authentic to the memory of that old 13-inch tube TV. The glow in a dark room. The way the whole world shrank down into the size of a screen that you could lean your head against. And that's the feeling, that's the product you're buying here. So I'm not going to load this up with a bunch of stuff that shows off horsepower because it doesn't have any horsepower. Seriously, treat this like an entry-level R36 and temper your expectations. But what I will do is play the games that I played in my bedroom. Super Nintendo, NES, Genesis, old actual retro games that just felt better on that warm, glowing, slightly over-gossed 13-inch tube TV you had on your old toy chest, just wedged precariously amongst Nintendo Powers and stacks of VHS tapes. One genuinely useful trick before we talk money. This thing is powered by a Type-C USB connection, which means you're not necessarily tethered to the wall as long as you have power packs. And God knows I got about 17 different U-Green and Anchor power packs. So you know what I did? I took it out to the closest thing I had to a treehouse, my kid's backyard fort. Which is super niche, sure, but let me tell you why this matters to me specifically. Because when I was a kid, my buddy and I wanted to play Nintendo 64 out in his treehouse, which was wired with a light bulb and one waterproof outlet thanks to his carpenter dad. So I did the only logical thing, which was move a 60-pound CRT up into a tree fort. I have no idea how we didn't die, but we watched a little bit of the Indians game on WUAB over the rabbit ears, and then we played GoldenEye deep into the night. And now you can get basically that same retro gaming where you shouldn't be feeling by taking this up with a USB power bank. You don't hurt your back. You don't hurt your legs. You can carry it up the side of a treehouse ladder one-handed. And that's progress, I think. And here's another little happy accident I discovered while messing around with the apps on this thing. Because it's a little 4x3 screen, 640 by 480, old television content fills it edge to edge. No black bars, no pillar boxing, none of that. So obviously I threw on an old Dragon Ball Z episode with some scan lines running over it, and it just looks right in a way that maybe it doesn't look when you're watching it on your phone. And because this is an Android box with Wi-Fi, you're not stuck manually loading a bunch of video files onto an SD card. You can use the native Android apps on here. So Netflix, Crunchyroll, Hulu, Pluto TV, whatever you want. Very quickly, this thing becomes a cool little retro streaming hub. I'm talking a full 90s Saturday. You start your morning with some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, maybe you catch a ball game in the afternoon, and you end your day with some Adult Swim until 2 o'clock in the morning. All on a very tiny TV, which is somehow extremely, cozy. Oh, and the marketing also wants you to know that it can be a photo frame, it can be a calendar, it can be a media hub for like your kitchen. And that's great, that might work for some people, but it's not how I'm using it. Being a calendar isn't really the point for me, but sparking a bunch of retro nostalgia, that is the point for me. And honestly, that alone justifies the cost of this. So I guess let's talk about cost. This is a $130 device. On sale, by the way. It's actually $150 if you don't take off the coupon codes. And on any spec sheet, it loses to handhelds. It loses badly. The Anbernic RG line, sitting at around $50, depending on your configuration, is objectively better than a retro TV. Then you run into stuff like the Mangmi Air X, which runs laps around the TV, and it's only $90. If what you want is the most bang for your buck, the most game for your dollar, I can't point you here. I would be lying. I'd be lying to your face, because this is not price efficient. But none of those handhelds look like a little TV, a little computer monitor that you had in your room, on your desk, somewhere in the late 80s and early 90s. You're not buying frames per second with this. You're buying a feeling. You're buying a feeling that has a power cord on the back. It's kind of like how the R36T shouldn't work. And yet, I have a video on it that has almost 100,000 views of a little R36 clone that has a bubble plastic lens on it that evokes just the notion of a CRT. And that is enough to draw some eyes. Gary, put a link to that at the end of the video, and then you, loyal viewer or new viewer, hello, go watch it at the end of this video. Well, Gary, the clock on the wall says it's time for What Did We Learn? And we learned that $130 buys you a lot less power than it should, but it also buys you a ton of nostalgia packed into this little 4-inch TV. We learned that this guy is a worse game machine than those cheaper handhelds, and yet somehow I like it. And both of those things are allowed to be true at the same time. I'm a complicated person. So no, I can't tell you to buy this if you want the most bang for your buck, but I can tell you to buy it if you're chasing that feel of when it was you all alone in your room with your 13-inch CRT and you were just playing the crap out of Chrono Trigger and everything good was condensed in that small space. That's kind of the feeling that this thing evokes. And I don't know. Something about that's pretty cool. If you thought this video was pretty cool, remember to like and subscribe and hype and all that jazz. Press the buttons on your phone or your TV. It's 2026. You know what to do. We're still grinding away to 100,000 subs, and we're also taking suggestions for the kind of video I should do when we hit that mark. You can leave your ideas in the comments, and they can range from quintuple hinged to so unhinged that the door is in the next county. It doesn't matter. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.